Today's review is sponsored by Micro Chips, the new snack that's guaranteed to make you lose weight because they're so damn small you will barely be able to find them.
Watch it, Alan, I'm shooting.
Emanuelle and the Last Cannibals. Today we're looking at a rather steamy entry in the Italian cannibal genre, so not only do we have to deal with a lot of gore, but there's also a lot of nudity in this movie, which YouTube does not like. So there's a lot of stuff in this movie that I cannot show here on YouTube, but I'm going to be testing the waters here because I want to see if I can talk about stuff like this in a tasteful way. So we're going to give this a shot. Wish me luck. Before we get into the review, a brief history on the character of Emanuelle. Now, one of my favorite YouTube channels, Horrible Reviews, has already done a video on the Black Emanuelle series. There's a lot of great information in that video. I would highly recommend checking it out. But for the basic information, here we go.
And do you think, Professor, that it could be risky to accept?
One never knows, but if I were you, I'd be very careful.
Well, for the sake of my article, maybe it's worth risking.
Back in 1974, the movie Emanuelle, starring Sylvia Kristel, was released. This was a sexploitation film with a fair amount of eroticism throughout the whole movie, and it gained quite a bit of international success. This was the era of porno chic when many adult films were gaining mainstream attention and success. The popularity of Emanuelle launched a slew of sequels, unofficial sequels, and rip-offs made by studios that wanted to cash in on the money train that were these very erotic films. Which brings us to Italy and Laura Gemser.
You're really, really crazy.
Maybe I am. But right now I want to make love.
Right now?
Right now.
The Italian film industry insisted that filmmakers make movies that were like popular movies, and Emanuelle was no exception. Thus we got the Black Emanuelle series, starring Laura Gemser, give or take one or two movies which starred somebody else. In the Black Emanuelle series, Emanuelle is a journalist who's always on the lookout for the next story that has to deal with the taboo side of life. She's a character who embraces her sexuality. She uses sex to get the information she's looking for, and she always finds herself in these scandalous, titillating situations, and some rather fucked up situations.
You're my king.
5 movies in the Black Emanuelle series were directed by Italian exploitation director Joe D'Amato, which brings us to Emanuelle and the Last Cannibals. This was one of the earlier Italian cannibal movies. It came out after Man from Deep River, but around the same time as movies like Mountain of the Cannibal God and Jungle Holocaust. I think it might have actually come out a little before those two movies. In the movie, Emanuelle is sent to the Amazon jungle to do a report on a lost cannibal tribe. After the discovery of a feral young woman who has a tendency to eat people, it's believed that the tribe is not as lost as originally thought.
Hey, quick there! Get a straitjacket!
So she sets out into the jungle with an anthropologist, played by Gabriele Tinti, who was her husband at the time, 2 female missionary workers, and 2 hunters who are less than trustworthy. Oh, and they also have a few guides with them because we need to add to the body count. So the group sets off on this adventure full of brutality, violence, and sex. So much sex. I like the character of Emanuelle. She's a strong, independent woman that embraces her sexuality. She loves sex, and she's not afraid to show that she loves sex. Laura Gemser does a good job as this character. She's so charismatic. You can't help but like Emanuelle. She knows who she is comfortable in her own skin, very comfortable in her own skin, and she doesn't care what other people think of her.
You can't possibly think that I've been waiting for you all my life. I'm a free woman and I behave as such.
You are fascinating, Manuel.
The Joe D'Amato run of the Black Emanuelle series gets pretty fucked up at times. As weird as it sounds, Emanuelle and the Last Cannibals is one of the more tame movies in this run of Emanuelle movies. But it's still fucked up though, because this is an Italian cannibal movie. The film is an odd combination if you know what kind of movies you're getting into. For the first half, it's an Emanuelle movie. For the second half, it's a cannibal flick. Now, these two movies work well by themselves, but together, I don't think they blend together as well when you mix the two. Not that this is a bad movie, I still had a good time with this flick. It just has some issues that hold it back a bit. Italian cannibal flicks have always had sex and nudity in them. TNA and balls are no stranger to this particular subgenre. But in most of the movies, it's sprinkled throughout the story. The sex and nudity flow a little better in the film. In here, the movie is very top-heavy with its erotic scenes. And for me, I think there's a little bit too much of them. Now, if this were a straightforward Emanuelle movie, or even just a fun sexploitation jungle romp, I think it would have worked better. But because this is a cannibal movie, it gets a little monotonous at times. Don't get me wrong, these scenes are shot well, they titillate the audience, and Laura Gemser is very attractive, but because all these erotic scenes are crammed into the first half of the movie, and there's this whole other plot that we want to get to, it gets tedious. Okay, this is very nice. Very nice. But can we get to the story? I think the movie would have been better if it made a cannibal movie or a sexploitation film. The nudity is not the problem. I have a lot of respect for people who have the guts to get naked on camera, especially for long periods of time. There are some pacing issues, not enough to ruin the movie, but enough to annoy me a bit. You all know how I feel about obvious padding. There are scenes where people are just walking through the jungle, and stuff does happen during some of these walking scenes, but it feels more like they're done to wake up the audience, not move the plot forward.
Mark, help me, I'm thinking! Mark, help, Mark!
These walking scenes could have been trimmed down a bit, and more focus could have been given to other things. The group is on their way to this mission run by a priest. Now, two members of the group know this priest, and as they're going through the jungle, they come across his dead body, or at least what's left of him.
There's a blanket here.
Enamoradas!
I didn't cut there. This is a big moment for these two characters. A friend of theirs has been found dead. Not just dead, but eaten by cannibals. And the movie just cuts away from it awkwardly. I understand that this is just supposed to be a sleazy cannibal movie mixed with a sexploitation movie, but that's my point. If they focused on one movie or the other, then there could have been better pacing in either movie. And there's one funny thing throughout the film that just makes me laugh. Every scene is filmed during the day. Not once did they film at night. But there are certain moments where it's supposed to be dark outside, but it's clearly a bright sunny day. The characters say, we can't do anything until daybreak, or it's too dark and dangerous to wander around right now, but they're clearly filming in broad daylight.
We better wait till daybreak to cross the river.
Is it usual to have their victims sacrificed at dawn?
Only on special occasions.
I think using day for night is lazy, but it would have been better to do that than just have the people film during the day and insist that it's dark. I swear to God it's dark out right now. Ignore the sun in the sky. It's funny stuff. I don't want to make it seem like this is a bad movie. It's just flawed. There is some good stuff here if you're a fan of cannibal flicks. The issues don't ruin the movie, they just hold it back a bit. The characters in this flick are more developed than characters in other Emanuelle movies. We grow to like some of these people, and the movie is not afraid to kill them off in very brutal ways. A lot of them I can't show here because there's nudity involved, but the film is not afraid to go hardcore with its kills. And I think Emanuelle is one of the best female characters in Italian cannibal movies. Most of the time when it comes to movies like this, the women are there to be in distress. They are rescued from the coming torture and death. Or not rescued.
There! That cage! Maggie!
But Emanuelle is very useful in the third act of this movie. She's useful while naked, but she's still a confident character who ends up saving the day at the end in her own way. And she ends up gunning a few natives down as they're making a break for it. Again, she's doing this while naked, but yeah. It's one thing to be naked, but being naked and taking people out with a rifle, that's badass.
We made it.
While I do have issues with Emanuelle and the Last Cannibals, I don't hate this movie. There's plenty to like here. Emanuelle is great, there's plenty of cannibal violence, and the sex scenes are well done. I just think that if the movie were tweaked a bit, if we got to the plot sooner, and if they tightened up the pacing issues, this could have been a great cannibal movie. As it is, it's pretty good, but it could have been better. And with that, let's get to the Grindhouse rankings. We've got a body count of 14, with 2 kills being shown in a film reel. The kills consist of, but are not limited to, death by jungle trap, gutting, being cut in half, and a few off-screen deaths with bloody reveals. It reaches the cannibal requirements with flesh-eating, jungle adventures, and brutal death scenes. There is so much nudity in this flick. Like, a lot. You get plenty of sex scenes, male butts, and full frontal ladies. Emanuelle is a good character, confident in who she is and not ashamed to be a sexual person. The characters are good in this movie, more developed than in other Emanuelle films, which makes their deaths all the more impactful. Speaking of deaths, the kills are brutal. True, the effects are on the cheaper side, but they still work well to induce vomit. The erotic scenes are well done, There's just too many of them in the first half. This movie is top-heavy on the sex. There are some pacing issues. The film could have been trimmed up a little to help the story flow better. While the rest of the movie can be tedious, the third act is very good. It has all the cannibal tropes that fans could ask for. I'm giving this a 3.2 out of 5. It could have been better, but all in all, it's a good movie for fans of Italian exploitation. As always, I want to thank all of you for continuing to watch and support this channel. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know a movie that you overall like, but think could have been better if it were trimmed up a bit. And let me know if you'd like me to talk about more Emanuelle movies or films like them. They'd be hard to talk about on YouTube, but it could be interesting. This is the Maniac, here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go take a cold shower and think about baseball.